Good morning, everyone. It's about 6 a.m. here in Santa Susana Pass State Historic Park near Chatsworth, Los Angeles. And I'm hiking the approximately 3.5 miles to a location up here in the hills that was essentially ground zero for what I think is safe to say one of the most notorious and shocking crimes in Los Angeles history. Yes, you guessed it, Spahn Ranch. It looks like right here is part of an old bed. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna have to cross this. I do not like this at all. Or better known today as the home base from where Charles Manson and his followers, the family, planned and committed some of the most brutal murders that are still today the thing of nightmares. Now, I've never been here before, so as far as I know, this 3.5 mile long trail starting on a road named Andorra Avenue is the only way to get to the area. And I'm not a Manson expert, so I'll try my best. But I think starting down here and working our way up the trail makes sense because Spahn Ranch isn't just a Manson story. Before any of that happened, this place had decades of history. Long before Manson showed up, these hills were part of Hollywood's old Western machine. A place where Hollywood came to shoot cowboys and shootouts. And by the late 1960s, when that was all fading, it helped create a perfect storm for what happened here in the late 60s. As I'm walking up this trail here, what's interesting is that this whole landscape already starts to explain why Hollywood was drawn to this area. You have the hills here, you have the rocks, you have the brush, and we're still on the edge of Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles, but it really doesn't feel like a city anymore. And that was the appeal of this place. Because before Spahn Ranch became infamous for the Manson family, this whole area around Chatsworth, Simi Valley, the Santa Susana Pass was part of a much bigger movie ranch world. For decades, this was basically Hollywood's outdoor backlot for the Old West. From roughly the 1930s into the early 1960s and peaking in the 1950s, Westerns were a huge part of American entertainment. Hollywood and the industry here was really just pumping these things out, and landscapes like this really helped sell this fantasy. Frontier towns, dusty trails, a rocky hideout, a place where a cowboy could ride across the screen and make you believe that they were far away from Los Angeles. But funny enough, that was the whole advantage of this place. You could make this look like a frontier while still being close enough to the studios that a film crew could come out here, shoot for the day, and be back at night for dinner. The area where we're headed to, which what used to be Spahn Ranch, is cited as being the filming location for a lot of very popular TV westerns and movies like Bonanza, The Lone Ranger, Zorro, and many others. But we can't forget everyone's favorite 1969 exploitation western, The Ramrodder, from which what I found on the internet was actually filmed here around 1967 or 1968, depending on what information source you look at, which was actually around the time that the Manson family was crashing here in this area. So according to the fact page on IMDb about this movie, The Ramrodder, 2 Manson family members were actually in this movie, which is pretty interesting and kind of crazy. I'll admit that I haven't seen this masterpiece yet, but someday I hope the suits at Netflix see the value in adding it to their library. Anyway, the point is, before Spahn Ranch became a name people associated with real violence, it belonged to a world of fake violence. Fake towns, fake gunfights, fake outlaws, fake danger. But eventually, the Westerns slowed down, the ranch fell into disrepair, and by the time Manson and his followers arrived, that old Hollywood world was already starting to disappear. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit here because there's some really cool rock formations here. Just this area alone, I think I'm about a quarter of the way there. And just take a look at these rocks. It's really quite a beautiful area up here. It's a very unique landscape, and I can definitely see the attraction of filming here. Unfortunately, it's a little hazy today, so you can't really see much, but right down there is the San Fernando Valley, Los Angeles, the city, and it's just really neat up here. When you look this way, I mean, other than the power lines, it's pretty wild up here. There's coyotes, there's rattlesnakes. That's the biggest thing you have to worry about up here is rattlesnakes. You can really see how somebody or a group of people could come out here and hide out here. And if you didn't want to be found, this could be a good place to go while still being relatively close to the city. I will say, if you decide to come up here, the trails aren't really marked that well. So I'm navigating by Google Maps. I do have service up here, and it's not the easiest because there's lots of trails like this one here that just meander around, and they're not really named or labeled. So I'm pretty sure I'm going the right direction, but I'll find out soon if I'm not. So unfortunately, it looks like I got a little turned around. I went the wrong route, and I'm gonna have to backtrack just a little bit. But check out this kind of canyon thing here. It's not really a big canyon, but it's like a cave area, I guess you could say. Check this out. Now, we're still probably 2 miles away from where Spahn Ranch was, but I'm sure when the Manson family was living here, they wandered all through these hills. So, looks like a lot of people have been up here hanging out, doing graffiti. Kind of messing up the place, which is unfortunate. Kind of hate to see graffiti like this on these rocks in this natural area, but so I'm back on the correct trail, I think. This is where I gotta go. Old Stagecoach Road, or Stagecoach Road. That's what I need to go on. The trail's getting a little bit more narrow here, so it's a little bit nerve-wracking watching out for snakes, but I'm just keeping my eyes open. So one of the things that I think is interesting about Spahn Ranch and this whole area in general is that the Hollywood history of this general area has been kind of eclipsed by Manson, the Manson family, and the crimes that happened here. Just heard something over there. And I get it. I get why. The later history is so dark and shocking that it's hard not to focus on that. But it's unfortunate that it pretty much eclipses the rest of the history of this area, because before Manson and the family came, Spahn Ranch had already lived a whole life before their arrival. Like I said before, it belonged to an era when Westerns were pretty much one of the most dominant forms of American entertainment. And a lot of those Westerns were built around a pretty familiar formula. A villain or an outlaw causes trouble, the good people of the town feel threatened, and a morally clear hero steps in, and after the chase or the final showdown, order is restored. That was the moral premise of a lot of these Westerns, pretty much saying the world might be dangerous, but the good guy still wins in the end. But by the time Manson and his followers arrived here in the late 1960s, that kind of story was starting to feel out of step with the country around it. Vietnam was on television. The counterculture was challenging the old rules and the establishment. There were protests, political violence, drugs, distrust of authority, and a growing generational divide. And in the late 1960s, the movies and TV, movies especially, started to reflect this. Audiences were changing, and they were becoming more interested in darker, stranger, more morally complicated stories. Stories about anti-heroes, outsiders, outsiders, drifters, the old formula of the Western hero riding into town, saving the day, restoring order, didn't really speak to that moment in time anymore. Around this time in 1969, the late 60s, movies like Easy Rider were exploding onto the scene. That film came out in 1969. The same year, Spahn Ranch became infamous, actually, and it represented a totally different kind of American youth. Not a sheriff restoring order, but outsiders on motorcycles drifting through a divided country where order itself seemed to be breaking down. By this time, a new generation of filmmakers and audiences were changing what Hollywood looked like. And as Hollywood changed, places like this area and Spahn Ranch started to lose their importance in the industry. And that's what makes this place important to the story, because by the time Manson showed up, he wasn't walking into Hollywood at its peak. He was stepping into a void, essentially, that was left behind. Sure, Spahn Ranch still had horses, it had the old sets and traces of its movie history, but its original purpose was fading by this point. And at the same time, the country around it was in the middle of its own identity crisis. So in my opinion, in a strange way, Spahn Ranch became pretty much caught up in kind of a perfect storm. There was an old Hollywood fantasy world that was collapsing, and a darker American mood was taking over. Forgotten Ranch was sitting on the edge of Los Angeles, and Manson and his followers arrived at this exact moment when all of these things were overlapping. That to me is key to understanding this place, because places like this don't disappear all at once. They lose their purpose first, and sometimes when a place loses its purpose, something else moves in. And in this case, it was Charles Manson and the family. Check out this view. So right here is a marker from 1939 that was placed here by the native daughters of the Golden West, and it marks the old Santa Susana stage road, basically one of the original routes through this pass before cars and freeways. Back in the 1800s, stagecoaches came through this area between the San Fernando Valley and the Simi Valley. So this trail wasn't always just a hiking trail. At one point, it was actually a real road through these mountains that people used to travel on. Looking at the condition of this trail, though, it must have been a pretty brutal route to come through on a stagecoach. I can't really imagine traveling on this thing with anything, really, besides hiking it. But that's kind of cool. You can actually see a faint outline of what used to be this road. It doesn't look like it would be smooth sailing through here. It looks pretty uncomfortable, actually, and probably took quite a bit of time bringing stuff through here. I could be wrong about this, but it looks like there's divots here. And I'm guessing that these divots were here from some of the stagecoaches they used to bring through here. Probably it was carved out, or the wheels carved it out, or maybe it was just a irrigation area here. But you can definitely see kind of an outline of a road that was once here, a bumpy road. So I just realized I went the wrong way again, and I have to backtrack a little bit. This place ain't easy to find. It's getting a little wild out here. The trail's getting narrower. There's a lot more brush. I feel like I'm kind of not on a main trail anymore. To be honest, since I've got up pretty much like a quarter of a mile away, I kind of lost track of the main trail, and I'm just sort of navigating by Google Maps and using the satellite view to kind of navigate where I'm going. So the trail here is a little rough, but I am getting close to the location of what used to be Spahn Ranch, where Charles Manson and his followers, the family, hid out, kind of had a home base, did whatever they did up in these hills. I'm sure they wandered all through this area where I'm standing right now, and of course committed several shocking high-profile murders. But we're getting really close. And what's kind of interesting is I found an old car here, a rusted out old car. I have absolutely no idea if this has a connection to the Manson family or how it got up here. I mean, how the heck did an old rusted out car get all the way up here? So I looked up a little information about this car, and the story is hard to confirm. Online, some people claim it may have been connected to Bruce Davis, one of Manson's close followers. Others call it the Zodiac car because of a later theory linking Davis to the Zodiac case, but that part has never been proven. What makes it interesting is that the Manson family was tied to stolen cars and auto parts around Spahn Ranch. In fact, that was one of the main reasons police raided the ranch in 1969, before they had connected the family to the Tate LaBianca murders. So could this old rusted car be connected to the Manson family, or even Bruce Davis? It's possible. But from what I could find, there's no definitive proof. Like a lot of things surrounding Spahn Ranch, it sits somewhere between real history and local legend. There's gotta be a story behind that. So yeah, it's a little eerie. There's this clearing here where there's this rock formation here, kind of like a cliff. And this rock in the center here with a hole dug out. And then there's this rusted out old car, which I have zero idea how it got up here because there's no roads here at all. So it's pretty crazy that this is here. And I have no idea if this has any connection, this car has any connection whatsoever to the Manson family. I'm sure somebody knows. But we're gonna walk over here a little bit. It's kind of eerie here. Here's another part of a car, a rusted out truck bed. Again, I have no idea how this got here because it's not like we're on a road. There's literally like a rough trail coming up through here. So I have zero idea how this got up here. It would be interesting to know if this is leftover artifacts from when the Manson family was here, if they have anything to do with this. But walking up here, there's this cave here. I'm gonna go inside. Doesn't look like it goes too deep. But it's an interesting little area. There's kind of a flat, almost like hangout area here with some old car parts, an entire rusted car over here, and a little cave. It's kind of hard for me to fit in there because it's not too big, but it could be some good shelter if you were in a pinch, if it was raining and storming and you had no place else to hide. It'd be a good spot to hang out or hide from the law. I don't know. Here's another little cave here. Lots of places to hide out. So we're pretty close to Spahn Ranch now. I can actually see it right down there. And I think it's safe to say that when Charles Manson and his followers, the family, were living here in this area, they probably came to this location up here because it looks like a good spot to hang out. You got this rock right here in the middle. You got some old car parts, some caves over there. I'm sure they were kind of exploring this whole area out here in these hills. It's pretty quiet today though. And I'm the only one out here that I know of. Hopefully I'm the only one out here. But we're going to continue on and make our way down to the location of what was Spahn Ranch, the reason we're here. And I think we're going to be there shortly. So I got to this little fork in the road here, and there's a more direct route to get down there right here. It's kind of hard to see. And as I started making my way down there, I definitely heard a rattlesnake, so I will not be going this direction. And I'm going to go this way, up here. It's kind of a more roundabout way to get down to the location of Spahn Ranch where I want to go, but I'm not messing with whatever's in those bushes right there. But I'm glad it gave me a warning, because that would suck to get bitten by a rattlesnake out here. They're definitely out here. I also want to add, I have to say it's kind of odd being here because there is a feeling of like a juxtaposition of emotions being here. On one hand, you have, you know, this beautiful nature, the tranquility, the peacefulness, the quiet here. You hear the birds chirping, and on the other hand, you have this kind of dark energy here, knowing what went on here. All those crimes that are now synonymous with Charlie Manson and the family were pretty much planned out here, and this was kind of their headquarters, to say, during that era. So it does kind of have a gravity being here. There is sort of a dark energy. But on the other hand, if you knew nothing about the story of Charlie Manson and the family and the crimes they committed, it would just seem like a beautiful, peaceful place. But you also have that element of dark energy that's surrounding this place. I'm a little nervous running into some snakes because this area is a little overgrown, and it kind of freaks me out a little bit that I saw or heard one earlier. So I don't want to run into another rattlesnake. That's what I'm really freaked out about. It does kind of have a dark energy feel being out here, but the snakes are what really kind of scare me the most. And it's looking really overgrown here. So unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to cross this. I do not like this at all. I'm happy I'm out of that little area. It's a little overgrown in some of these areas, but it looks like I'm on more of a main path now. But I think I'm getting close. I'm pretty sure it's a straight shot from here to get to the ranch. There may be an easier way to get here, but this is the only route I know. So there's kind of a trail that branches off of the main trail that I was on, and it's brought me down to this stream area. Not a whole bunch down here. It looks like there might have been a structure here. I don't know what that is. So this location right here where I just stumbled upon is probably one of the most infamous locations associated with the Spahn Ranch and the Manson family because of the photo that I just showed. And this photo shows members of the Manson family gathered together in this little cave area right here, almost in a strange group portrait. At first glance, it almost kind of looks like an innocent photo of some young people in the 60s hanging out, but knowing what the group was involved with now, it kind of gives the image a much darker weight. This photo is usually associated with the Spahn Ranch period around 1969, when this place became one of the main bases for Charles Manson and his followers. They lived here, they worked here, they hung around the old sets, and they used this ranch to drift in and out of Los Angeles while staying just removed enough from the rest of the world. By this point, Spahn Ranch had become this bizarre mix of horse ranch, decaying Hollywood set, commune, B-movie location, stolen car hangout, and essentially a criminal hideout. And when you think about it, that's part of what makes this place unsettling. This wasn't the middle of nowhere. This was essentially on the edge of the city of Los Angeles. Close enough to be connected, but remote enough to disappear. And during this period, the group's crimes escalated. Gary Hinman was murdered in July of 1969. The Tate LaBianca murders followed in August. And later that same month, ranch hand Donald Shorty Shea was killed. Not every crime happened physically here at Spahn Ranch, but the ranch was the center of gravity. It was home base, the place that they came back to, the place where they isolated themselves, the place where Manson's control deepened. So we're going to head up a little bit further, and up here is where I believe the area where Spahn Movie Ranch used to be. So it's the day after I filmed this earlier stuff at Spahn Ranch, and I had to come back the following day because I made a mistake my first time here. Originally, I thought the old site of Spahn Ranch was up here, which it's not. It's on the other side of the creek over here, up on this hill. And I'll go up there in a moment, but I wanted to explore this space down here for a couple minutes because this is an area that is the Manson family was known to hang out at quite a bit, and quite a few famous photos were actually taken here. There's the famous Hammock Manson family photo that was taken by Time magazine, and I believe, I'm going to try to find that exact location, but I believe it was right around here somewhere. And another important kind of artifact from this time is this rock here. Which is supposedly called Manson's Rock because he used to sit here and play his guitar, and rumor has it that he actually played for Terry Melcher when he came by here to listen to his music. So that legend has it that Charlie Manson sat on this rock and played for Terry Melcher here when Terry Melcher was thinking about giving him a record deal. Apparently at one point it had M carved into it, or Manson's name, and it's since been split in half, and you can actually see where somebody split this rock in half because they did not want it to become a site where people would come and worship him. So this rock used to be a bigger rock, and it had an engraving in it. I believe it was an M for Manson, and it was called Manson's Rock, and now it's since been cut in half. But I'm going to walk around this area, this little wooded area below Spahn Ranch, because Spahn Ranch was apparently right up here. And another interesting thing about this area is apparently Manson and the family used to do target practice down here, and rumor has it that a lot of these trees still have bullet holes in them from when Manson would come here and do target practice. Now, there's a lot of engravings on these trees, like people have marked them up, and there's a lot of things that look like holes. I don't think there's any way to tell if it's really from the Manson family, because that was close to 60 years ago. And some of them could be, like right here, you can kind of see, I don't know, there are holes, but I don't know if there's definitive proof that they're from the Manson family. Let's look over here. Yeah, I mean, like right here, those look like holes. Ooh, there's a spider there. Like right here, those look like holes, but I don't know if there's any way to tell if those are actually from the Manson family. I mean, people have been coming around here, hanging out, doing crap, carving on these trees, probably shooting guns down here. So I don't think there's any way to tell. Looking around in this space, I mean, I don't think there's anything left from the Manson family, directly from the Manson family, because it's probably been taken away. But this is definitely a space that they used to hang around, and this rock right here is probably the last real artifact from that time, but it's been destroyed. I did find kind of an old rusted cable over here in this tree. The tree is kind of grown around it. So that looks like it's been here for a while, but who knows? I don't know if it's been there 60 years, close to 60 years. But now we're gonna head up to the site where Spahn Ranch used to be. It's a little overgrown here, which again I don't like, but we're gonna try to see if we can find this Spahn Ranch, old Spahn Ranch location. And apparently there's nothing there. I mean, there's no buildings there anymore because everything burned down in the 1970s, shortly after Manson and the family left the location, and when most of them were in prison or jail, the place burned down in a forest fire. But we're gonna see if there's any artifacts we can find of, I don't know, maybe old timber that's been left behind, maybe some old foundations, maybe some old rusted vehicles. Here's some wire. So it's a little cooler than it was the other day, and hopefully that means there's less snakes, because the snakes really like to come out when it's warm. So I'm approaching the area where Spahn Ranch used to be, and I'm kind of right above the Manson cave right now. And already I can see some pieces of wood, some timber that's been left here. It looks like an old railroad tie, but my guess is that that's probably some remnants of the ranch that used to be here. But we're going to continue on down a little bit further. There's where we were, just down there, that little clearing down there in the space where apparently the family used to do target practice, and where Manson's Rock was. So I think the ranch is a little further down here. I'm not really seeing anything around this area, but it's pretty overgrown right now. Also, I probably should have worn pants because this stuff is really scratching my legs right now. So here's some more kind of what looks like foundational stuff. Looks like some rebar or something from probably a structure that was here. So it's hard to see right now, but the road is right there, and my guess is that all this was clear cut back in the day and has since grown up since this place has been abandoned, essentially. But you can see this area right here it's a flat area, and My guess is that this is where Spahn Ranch used to be, the buildings, and it's since been overgrown because it's been left to the wild and nature has taken over. But this is the spot where Spahn Ranch used to be. And you can see from old photos this hillside in the background. A lot of the famous photos of Spahn Ranch, this hillside is pretty noticeable, which is how you know this flat area was where Spahn Ranch was. You can kind of tell that this area has been leveled off, but since the fire came through and burned everything up and this place has pretty much been left to the wild, nature's taken over, there's really not any traces left of the old movie ranch that used to be here, Spahn Ranch. It's interesting that I'm standing in a space right now where some of the most horrific crimes in Los Angeles history, or even American history for that matter, were masterminded. And if you looked at it today, you would probably guess that it's just been a natural space forever. The only indication that this area was ever used for anything are the old photos that you can see. After the Tate LaBianca murder, Spahn Ranch started to get a lot more heat from the police. On August 16th, 1969, just days after the murders, police raided the ranch here. But at this point, they weren't investigating the murders. They were here because of stolen cars. Most of these arrests didn't stick, but from this point on, Spahn Ranch was no longer the hiding place it used to be. Then later that month, Donald Shorty Shea was killed because family members reportedly believed that he brought police attention here to the ranch. So by this point, Spahn Ranch was getting way too exposed for the family here, and Manson and the remaining family started pushing away from Los Angeles, way out into the desert. That's when Barker Ranch became their next major hideout, which was deep in the Death Valley area, way further away from civilization. I actually made another video about this when I went to Barker Ranch, and it's a lot more remote than here. And when they moved to Barker Ranch, that's essentially when everything started to unravel. Eventually, they started doing the same stuff that they were doing here in Spahn Ranch, and then the police busted Barker Ranch under the same context of stolen cars and whatever mischief they were doing up there, and arrested them all again. And this was pretty much their last stand. This is when everything collapsed, because shortly after, Susan Atkins confessed to the murders, and the police started connecting the dots and connected them all to the murders here in Los Angeles, and that's essentially when they went down. Then in 1970, roughly a year after Spahn Ranch was raided and Manson was arrested, a wildfire pretty much engulfed this area and everything was destroyed. The movie sets, the ranch buildings, and all the physical pieces connecting this area, Spahn Ranch, to its Hollywood years, and the Manson family for that matter, were wiped out. So when people come here looking for the Manson Ranch, or Spahn Ranch for that matter, they're mostly looking for something that exists only in old photos. Today, Spahn Ranch is remembered because of Manson, and that makes sense. But standing here, it doesn't really feel like a crime scene. It feels quiet, almost peaceful. A place where Hollywood came to film myths and TV and make-believe, and eventually it became part of a real nightmare. And then everything burned and it became parkland, and it all survives today mostly in story and in legend. Just walking around a little bit, I'm finding just random parts to stuff. I don't know exactly what this is, but it looks like it's some sort of car part or some sort of building material. I don't know. But there's just random kind of pieces of wood or random metal parts laying around. I tried going down there a little bit further, and it's just so overgrown right now. Apparently there's a frame of a car or a truck that's down there. It may even be the iconic Spahn Ranch truck that sat out front of the ranch area, but it's so overgrown right now. I can't really get back there, and I'm not sure I want to risk it, but I'm sure there's artifacts from vehicles and building materials scattered all through this area. It's just hard to find because it's so overgrown. Another thing I want to add, apparently there's rumors that there's dead bodies buried around here somewhere in this area. I don't know if that's been confirmed. I'm pretty sure they came out here with cadaver dogs and the police searched this area pretty well. That's not to say that there's not dead bodies out here. I think it could be possible, but nothing has been found. The only person who was murdered around this area and found semi-close to here was Donald Shorty Shea, who was killed around this area. Not exactly on Spahn Ranch, but I guess they found his body buried in around 1977. I'm pretty sure it was a little ways up there. But as far as I know, that was the only murder that occurred in this area. And if there's dead bodies buried out here still, could be possible, but I don't think there's any definitive proof that there's other bodies buried around this area. You know, like a lot of sensational stories, the line between reality and fiction and things that have been exaggerated over time is kind of blurred. So it's hard to say what is correct and truly fact and what's just been exaggerated over time. I guess the only people who truly know are the ones that were involved. So before I leave, actually, I want to take some time to check out this area down here, this creek area, because it looks like there's a lot of foundational material, a lot of cement down here. And I'm pretty sure that when Spahn Ranch burned down and they were clearing this area, a lot of it was pushed off into this ravine, this little creek area. I'm just going to take a little walk down here and see if I can find anything already up there. Might be kind of hard to see. I can see some sort of, looks like some sort of twisted metal, which is probably part of a foundation. So I'm just going to go up there, see if I can see anything. There's lots of poison oak here, so you got to be really careful. But it looks like right there is a piece of metal. Here's another pipe. So I have no idea what this thing is, but it's stuck in the ground pretty deep. And you can move it around. And up here, there's some more stuff. Some more metal. And it looks like right here is part of an old bed. And all you can see is just some of the springs and some of the steel frame of this bed, and that's all that's left. And right here there's some bricks and some cement pylons. Guessing it's safe to say we're probably part of Spahn Ranch. It kind of looks like this area has been dug out. I'm gonna climb down and try to go down a little bit further. So as I'm walking down this kind of creek area, there's all sorts of what looks like parts of a foundation. Not sure I can go too much further, but apparently up here, right around the area up here, it's kind of hard to tell, there's that steel foundation of what I think is a truck. One of the trucks that used to be here, or one of the hay movers. But it's so overgrown up in some of these areas, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find it. Taking a look down here, looks like there's an old tire right there. Who knows where that's from. Also, an old bottle. There's just a lot of trash down here, and whether or not it's related to Manson and the family and Spahn Ranch, who knows, but that's pretty much all that's left. I mean, all the structures here were probably wood, I'm guessing, mostly made of wood, so that all burned, but all you have left is pretty much some of these foundational material, which was pushed over the side here, and kind of left here to rot, and this is really all that's left. It's almost like an archaeological site at this point. There's just kind of old ruins. Hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, no worries.
We've never dreamed our life we'd ever be sitting in this cave.
Yeah,
really
it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Me too.
There's some people taking a photo in the cave there. I'm sure people are coming down here all the time, taking pictures down here, exploring the area. I mean, it's not that hard to get to if you start on the road up here. I took the long route the first time coming here because I wanted to explore the area leading up to here, but it's really pretty easy if you just start up on this road here and walk in. The only issue is parking. There's really nowhere to park on this road up here. I think it's called Santa Susana Road or Lane. And it's kind of, people drive fast on the road and there's no parking, not much of a shoulder. But if you're willing to risk it, you can just hop over this fence here and walk on down here and then hang a left here. So it's really not that hard to get here. And right here is the entrance, the easier route to get to here, to get to Spahn Ranch and the Manson Cave, right on this road here. So it's a public park. Anybody can come down here, and I'm sure it gets many visitors every single day, but there's no parking. And as you can see, people drive kind of fast on here, and the shoulder is pretty narrow, so it's a little bit treacherous, but it's easier than hiking that long ways in the beginning that I took, although not as beautiful. And you can see right here that people have stuck a bunch of stickers here. I'm sure people are coming down here all the time. So now that we've explored Spahn Ranch in this area, I'm gonna head up a little bit on this road, and apparently there's a dumping ground where the Manson family used to dump a lot of the pieces from cars they used to steal. So we're gonna head up to their little area that's known as the Manson family dumping ground and see what we can find. So apparently there's some vehicles down here, some VW Volkswagens and other vehicles that were pushed down this ravine, and other car parts that were related to the Manson family, cars that they stole and disposed of here. And it's pretty rough getting down there. There's a lot of brush, it's really overgrown. So I'm gonna put the drone up and see if I can see anything down there. I already tried to check it out on Google Maps, and I couldn't really see much, but I could see some faint outlines of some rusted vehicles down there, which I think were rusted vehicles, but it's hard to tell on Google satellite view, so I think I'll be able to see it better with the drone. And I might add, there's no evidence or proof that these vehicles are from Manson and the family. I'm sure there's a lot of trash down there. People are always throwing stuff down there. But it is definitely known that they were into stealing vehicles, and it's said that this was a dump site. So already I see one car that looks like a VW, the shell of a rusted out VW Bug. We're gonna try to get a little bit closer and zoom in on it. It looks like there's some bullet holes in this one. Whether or not these vehicles down here are actually related to Manson and the family, like a lot of things surrounding Spahn Ranch and the activities that went on here, a lot of it's speculation, but there's probably a good chance that there is some stuff down there related to the family, because this was known to be kind of a dump site for them.